Hello and welcome back to the part 2 of our conversation on problem solving and how it can be supported with visuals. Hi, David.
Hi, Bart. I'm ready to roll.
Great. Me too.
You're 6,000 miles away, and it's like we're in the same room.
And I'm as ready as you are. So let's begin. And just to remind you what we promised to recreate the model that you see right here and speak about some details that might be important to consider when you're using visuals in problem solving.
Yeah, like life. You might want to look at what you're doing.
Yeah. So let me just clean the page here. Okay. And let's start from this situation when the problem is spotted, right?
Yes, when it's noticed, this stage of problem identification, as most people know who are problem solvers, and I think a lot of our audience is problem solvers, we could be talking about identifying causes. It tends to be the case that before we identify causes, we see symptoms. We see the results of those causes.
Yep.
And we use the term onion model to say, oh, well, what's really the cause is not that, it's this thing underlying it. And then we can get into all kinds of conversation about what the real causes are, and therefore sometimes what the most important solutions are to deal with those problems. So problem identification is really important. And as basic as this is, that can be a trap for a lot of people, is not being on the same page with what we're talking about, identifying the problem in the most accurate way.
And we'll soon share more about what you can do to help problem identification with visuals. But let's first expand this model and speak about three other segments or 3 other stages of this model, because what follows is that you start to analyze what's going on, what's the problem at hand, right?
Right. And in change management, that second stage is often referred to as assessment. And there can be, that you can get pretty elaborate in your analysis or your assessment.
The reason why I draw it that way, that it expands, because it's important to realize that you need a specific type or mode of thinking when you're analyzing the problem. You need this divergent thinking, right? Where every person that looks at the problem is allowed to bring to the table different assessment, different perspective. You don't know which one is wrong or right, so you want to allow to gather as many perspectives as you can.
Yes, agreed. So I'm depicting that by little conversation bubbles, which have different items in them. Oh, and by the way, that allowing people to voice their opinions is really important in the overall psychological makeup of all the contributors and what they have in terms of their own perspective to share.
Contributors, you say? Okay, let me bring some contributors to the board, right? We need at least 4 of them. How do you like them? Okay, they're here with us. I'll just put them here. So they are now engaged. They are informed about this situation. This one is pretty happy.
He's really excited that we're finally discussing it.
Yeah, he likes to contribute. Okay, so that's it. So that's the stage number 2. And what follows is that when this problem is analyzed, we change the mode of thinking about it, and we start. First, we need some options how to deal with the problem before we start to narrow those options down to the one that we'll select for implementation. So let me sort of label different options coming from those contributors of ours. After getting them on the canvas or on the table, you have those options laid out. So you want to select the right one. So that's how I'm going to depict this mode of thinking. where you try to narrow those options and perhaps select just one.
Right. And I want to emphasize the word that you used a moment ago, which was you lay it out. You don't depend on verbal. You make your mark. You represent it on the board, which is a common space, whether it's a board like this or a physical board or a phone or a computer. It's there in front of people. It's that point of view that now stands and it's not going away. It stands on its own. Yep.
Thanks for
It's
that.
not in the air. It's not in the air and disappearing in 5 seconds.
Yeah. Thanks for that remark. Here we have a stage number 4, and that's implementation.
So I think it would be useful to point out here that a lot of times when a problem-solving process is ineffective, it's because people want to rush to stage 4 implementation because they think they have the right solution, when they haven't really done the full job of analysis and synthesis or decision-making, or they haven't put all those different parts or factors into the decision-making process. So they know, I know what has to be done. And that's very, very common when people rush to the implementation. That's a frequent behavior that thwarts the decision-making process as a whole because they think they know.
And in the next clip, we'll apply our model to 2 very specific situations.